course, Scam Sam. Mama Bear has gone rogue. Child sacrifice for money. Sketchy, sketchy, because she goes on to say, you are using Nishad and Caroline as fronts in the crypto world. Today, we're going to talk about Barbara Fried and what the lawsuit accuses her of doing. Now, one thing that I've noticed, super curious, is that a lot of blame gets put on Barbara, on the mother. It seems that she's way more disliked than the dad, Joseph Bankman. I don't even have a guess as to why. Alrighty, so Barbara Fried, likely one of the worst examples of parenting skills you'll see. I mean, it's just unbelievable at this point that this lady, her son, was essentially sacrificed. Sacrificed for her own benefit and, of course, her domestic partner, Joseph Bankman, which as legal experts, I would have thought they would have wanted to take advantage of all the tax benefits of being an actual legal family. It's pretty safe to say that Scam Sam was in communication with Joseph Bankman and of course Barbara Fried using private chats, for example the auto-delete signal chats. If he was using all that with all the Sam squad, the FTX insiders, why wouldn't he use it with his parents? Also, the only money that can be recovered is things that are openly discussed that they can find, which in the FTX lawsuit, this particular lawsuit that I'm reading, there's only so much that they have found, which means either nothing else exists or it's so well hidden that FTX lawyers, the bankruptcy lawyers, have not been able to find it. And given these so-called legal experts, especially with Joseph Bankman being a tax expert, and how much they shopped around for trusts that could hold their assets and maybe protect all their assets from being found. So there's all that to keep in mind. All right, so let's get into the lawsuit and what it says about Barbara Fried. This particular section is called Barbara Fried's role in the rise and fall of FTX, which of course includes the subsidiaries and all the entities under it. Okay, so they start by saying that Barbara Fried is a professor emerita at Stanford Law School, that she joined the faculty back in 1987. So she's been there a very long time. Professor emerita, meaning she's retired, but she's allowed to retain her title. Lawsuit says that Barbara, she published more than 36 legal and academic writings. So the lawsuit is trying to paint her as a very well-respected, very well-regarded person in her field. They say that her legal writings include pieces titled The Limits of Personal Responsibility, Moral Relativism at its Finest. Another legal writing given as example titled Beyond Blame, Distributive Justice at work right there. They say that according to her CV, her resume, including two presentations that went before the American Bar Association, their section of taxation. And get this is so ridiculous. She currently serves as a member of the Board of Advisors at Stanford University's Ethics Center. You can't make this up. You just can't make this up. How can you serve as a university board member in their ethics department when you write things like limits of personal responsibility? These people fail to see their own irony. The lack of self-awareness of how ironic all that is, it's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. The lawsuit says that she graduated from Harvard University for her bachelor's as well as her master's degree, and then she went on to Harvard Law School. So Ivy Leaguer all the way. They say that despite her not having an official role at FTX Group, like Joseph Bankman, they say that she was still involved in many aspects of FTX Group, that Barbara Fried served as primary advisor to Scam Sam and all others at FTX, all insiders at FTX, regarding political donations, saying that she made these political donations in their individual capacities and on behalf of the FTX Group as a whole, that she presented herself as Sam Bankman Fried's point person on his political investments, using the words political investments. And that's a quote in the lawsuit, meaning she said that about herself, describing herself as Scam Sam's partner in crime of the non-criminal sort. That's a quote. And of course, partner in crime is a well-known saying, so the lawsuit might just be using that well-known expression for effect. Regardless, it's kind of funny. They say that Bankman Fried, Scam Sam, made known to several FTX Group insiders, the employees there, that his intent was to rely on his mother's discretion regarding political contributions, contribution recipients, contribution amounts, and disclosure requirements. That's pretty interesting there. They say that on top of that, that Scam Sam encouraged all the FTX Group insiders and employees to follow Barbara's advice, just like he was doing, which of course is all super Such bad advice to the point of people getting charged. Talk about horrible advice from a so-called legal expert, your own mother. They say that although Barbara Fried imposed magnanimous gloss over her efforts, that she in fact used her access and influence to benefit her own organization, Mind the Gap, an independent, expenditure-only political action committee that she co-founded in 2018, where she was the president and the chair. Notice the date of founding, 2018, which of course is after the founding of Alameda. So after Scam Sam started to reap the benefits in the crypto world. The lawsuit says that according to reports of Mind the Gap back in 2020, that they operated in a cone of secrecy regarding its financial donors and employing a core strategy of hiding which groups, which candidates, who it is backing until it's too late, so to speak. Kind of strange there. So they say that Mind the Gap, MTG, relied on Scam Sam and the whole FTX group, along with Nishad Singh, as a source of funding, that they were Barbara Fried's financial backing. Oh my God. The lawsuit says that Barbara Fried, that MTG, was dunning, they actually use the word dunning, fancy way of saying nagging, a persistent demand for funds. So much so that they say in one instance she was dunning Scam Sam for money that Barbara herself had committed unilaterally on Scam Sam's behalf. That at Barbara's explicit request, Scam Sam and Nishad contributed tens and tens of millions of dollars, not just to MTG, but also to MTG-supported causes. And they really make it sound like Barbara was extremely persistent to ensure that MTG itself would meet its funding goals, that she repeatedly called about these guarantees, that Barbara only finally resigned from her role at MTG because Scam Sam was arrested. They say that Barbara and Joseph Bankman, they both deployed their decades as sophisticated law professors with veneer of legitimacy, not to help the FTX group, but rather to plunder in order to enrich themselves and their pet causes. At this point, it's very safe to say that Barbara Fried, Mama Bear, has gone rogue. Okay, so the lawsuit goes on that Joseph Bankman, along with Barbara Fried, began mapping out various methods by which their son could gift them millions and millions of dollars of FTX group funds. They provide an example that in October of 2021, Barbara emailed Scam Sam, "You wrote down $14 million for the cash. That would be right if you were giving dad $10 million in cash. But I thought you were giving him only $7.2 million in cash plus $2.8 million in the account in his name. Which is it?" Pretty interesting. So the FTX bankruptcy lawyers obtained a copy of that email, and that's how they got the quote from Barbara Fried. They say that in another email exchange, this time in January of 2022, in an email with Daniel Friedberg and Scam Sam, that Joseph Bankman proposed a possible non-taxable method to structure transfers of up to $10 million from the FTX group to himself and Barbara Fried. They quote Joe Bankman here saying the easiest way is to add $10 million to the $250 million loan to Scam Sam from Alameda, and then Sam gifts the money. No current tax on either transaction. Sam recognizes income when the loan is paid off or canceled at the dividend or capital gains tax rate. But that can happen in a year or so when he donates a lot, offsetting some or all of it. It says that with Joe Bankman's advice, Daniel Friedberg agreed with this. And then with this method, they can transfer the loaned money directly into accounts that belong to Joe Bankman and separately to Barbara Fried. The lawsuit says there's no indication about Scam Sam intending to repay the so-called loan. Quoting Joe Bankman here that we are touched by this gift, that mom is announcing retirement, which she would not have done otherwise. Their bank accounts were touched by these gifts, of course. Distributive justice and effective altruism at work right there. Lawsuit says that Scam Sam, presumably assured by his father's endorsement of the plan, Scam Sam then transferred $10 million from an FTX US exchange associated with Alameda Limited. They provide even an email for the account, info@alamedaresearch.com. From that account directly into an FTX US crypto exchange account associated with Sam. Email sam@ftx.us. Apparently they have records of this because 20 seconds later, $10 million went from sam@ftx.us to an FTX US crypto exchange account associated with J. Bankman at stanford.edu. email. So with this, the lawsuit argues that Scam Sam transferred $10 million from Alameda Limited via FTX US crypto account directly to Joseph Bankman. So they have records between January the 25th and January the 31st in 22 that Joe Bankman withdrew from this account $6.775 million, all of which resulted in transfers to multiple bank accounts. They say all withdrawals went to 3 accounts, and Barbara and Joe were joint members. Lawsuit says that at the time of the petition date, meaning at the time when this lawsuit was filed, that the FTX US crypto account, where all this money was taken out, that account has a balance of $2,101,000, but also held 9,449 Solana crypto tokens, at the time valued at about $152,000. But right now, those Solana crypto tokens are worth $555,000 at the current price. The lawsuit says that FTX group activity logs on the accounting software used by the company did not reflect the $10 million transferred. On top of that, they did not connect the transfer of the $10 million to either Barbara Fried or Joe Bankman. Okay, and then they move on to Barbara Fried's political donations, which of course make her eligible to the worst Mama Bear award, because the lawsuit says that Barbara Fried encouraged the FTX group insiders to make unlawful, illegal political contributions to her own organization and others. That Barbara Fried was concerned that disclosing certain Scam Sam and FTX financial donations would cast a negative light. That in particular, she advised against full disclosure of financial donations made to her own organization. It's absolutely stupid. And they quote Barbara would create the impression of funding MTG as a family affair. The lawsuit says verbatim that Barbara's constant consideration of optics and how it would affect Scam Sam's companies and her own MTG company, MTG's strategy of stealth and maintaining a cone of silence. These considerations prompted Barbara to pressure FTX and FTX insiders to unlawfully avoid, if not violate, federal campaign finance laws. Your own mother, a so-called legal expert, that's very, very sad, essentially screwed you into violating the law. Poor Scam Sam. The lawsuit says that Barbara focused heavily on masking Scam Sam as a financial donor, that she raised this issue on a regular basis directly to Sam in email communications and constantly advised him to avoid such disclosures. The lawsuit provides an example of a December 2021 email where she advised Scam Sam and his brother, Gabriel Bankman, as follows: need to start thinking through the disclosure issue now to make sure that we protect Scam Sam and FTX. That plays at the state level, especially, are going to provoke accusations of carpetbagging. Very interesting there. In another email example provided October of 2020 to the president of the Political Action Committee regarding Scam Sam's anticipated $5 million financial donation, that Barbara specifically asked whether Sam, and I quote, would face any potential legal or optics exposure from donating through Alameda LLC, where Barbara goes on to say in the email, this is as much a judgment call as a legal one, that he's willing to take some risks, but wants to know what it is. What's with all the sketchy stuff? And the accusations just keep getting worse and worse for Barbara, because the lawsuit says that because of all of these concerns regarding optics, that Barbara on multiple occasions suggested and encouraged to falsify disclosure records and misrepresent the source of financial contributions. Why, Mama Bear? Why? They provide an example in another email exchange dated April 2021, where Barbara Fried emailed Scam Sam and Nishad asking about their pledge of $1 million for MTG's operating expenses. 90% of NGO costs or charities, it all goes to operating expenses, i.e. their own pockets. Anyways, they quote the email, and Barbara writes, since this is going to our 527 and hence is disclosed, I'm assuming that Nishad would be a better person to have his name on it. Pretty interesting there. She says, we have a slight preference for that on our end because my connection to Sam is publicly known, saying that she does not want her connection to Sam creating the impression that MTG is a family affair, as opposed to a collective effort by many people, including some mystery guy, Nishad Singh. If that works on your end, I'll have the MTG employee send you guys the instructions. Extremely interesting wording there. Sam replied to the email saying, works for me on all fronts. And Nishad replied to the email saying that he's happy to donate the $1 million for MTG operating expenses. In another example dated August of 2022, saying that Noah will only give in a non-disclosed form. And I would urge you to do the same, or to substitute someone else's name on it. Sketchy, sketchy, because she goes on to say, one of these days soon, some reporter is going to think to look more closely at FEC reports, do a search for donations by company, and just reframe this as the FTX juggernaut rather than the SBF juggernaut. Or even worse, that you are using Nishad and Caroline as fronts. Wow, wow, wow. So either she has a great subtle sense of humor, or just sounds really crooked. A so-called legal expert. A massive, massive fail for Scam Sam. It sounds like she knew what she was doing in a very passive-aggressive kind of way. They finished that quote by saying non-disclosed form would mean Form 501c4. Now Scam Sam replies to that email to his mother saying, awesome, happy to split the $15 million with him or wherever is best. Barbara Fried replied, you are a prince. Now remember that previously in the lawsuit, they quoted Scam Sam as saying that his parents were not involved in his business. Essentially, Sam was kind of protecting his parents. And if you think about it, his defense team for trial, they wanted to include the counsel advice strategy for their defense. Now the problem with that is he had two parents that were essentially so-called legal experts advising Scam Sam, setting him up for failure. It seems absolutely true that his own parents set up Scam Sam for failure in a massive way. And that's pretty sad. And the accusations just keep coming. It's just avalanche after avalanche after a tsunami against Barbara Fried, just like they were against Joseph Bankman. And I love that they provide email examples, email quotes, direct quotes from Barbara Fried. Anyways, in the next example, August of 2022, Barbara sends an email discussing funding gaps for political entities. They quote her saying, I would counsel strongly against giving in a disclosed form under your own name, both for MTG's sake and your own. She continues, of course, the obvious and truthful answer as to why you're giving the money to defeat state legislators who are committed to subverting the will of the voters. She says that won't get you very far in the press and won't get you anywhere with Republicans. You could get Nishad or Caroline to contribute to the PAC some of the total amount you're willing to give, but that has its own costs and risks. Now, Scam Sam's reply kind of sounds like the reply of a good son who takes the advice of his mother. He says, agreed, it doesn't make sense for me to give disclosed. It makes sense for me to give another $2 million or so for it, in whichever way it makes the most sense, etc. Essentially agreeing with his mother, her advice. Lawsuit says that Nishad served as a conduit through which FTX group funds passed to the recipients hand-selected by Barbara Fried and rubber stamped by Scam Sam, that Nishad enthusiastically donated to whatever cause was necessary that Barbara wanted. Lawsuit provides an example that in April of 2021, Alameda transferred $1 million from an account going into Nishad's bank account, and the next day, Nishad took this money, transferring $1 million into Barbara Fried's account that she had for MTG. Lawsuit says that in July of 2022, Alameda Limited transferred $2 million into Nishad's bank account. Nishad, the same day, transferred $1 million into another bank account owned by the Senate Majority PAC. 3 days later, Alameda Limited transferred $5 million from an account into Nishad's bank account. The next day, Nishad turns around and transfers $1.5 million to Emily's List. In the following weeks, $750 went to Women's Vote and $100,000 each to the House Legislative Campaign Fund and Maine Democratic State Committee. And then following that, Nishad transferred $2 million to an organization that supported ballot initiatives in the state of Michigan. The lawsuit says that Nishad admitted having conspired to commit campaign finance law violations, pleading guilty to conspiracy and to defrauding the United States government and willfully violating the Federal Election Campaign Act. That, of course, this prohibits the making of a contribution in someone else's name or knowingly permitting his or her name to be used to such effect. And they quote Nishad that he did not select the candidates or the political action committees, with Nishad further adding that he knew at the time that Alameda money had to be coming effectively from FTX customer funds. Now, if he knew this, it's very likely Barbara Fried knew this. In an email discussing financial contributions, Barbara Fried, she writes, "I don't know exactly what interconnected entity he sent the money from, but the business is real and revenue generating, and a corporation." They just keep coming, guys. Another example, September of 2021, she formed a nonprofit and the Internal Revenue Code requested where the funds were coming from for MTG. She forwarded the request to Scam Sam, asking, "Did the $22,000 come from you as an individual, or did it come from FTX US crypto exchange?" The lawsuit says that Barbara knowingly aided and abetted Scam Sam and Nishad's and potentially even others, that she aided and abetted their breaches of fiduciary duties in connection with these offenses. On top of that Barbara's actions, which led to Scam Sam and Nishad's failure to disclose the FTX group as the source of money, as the source for political financial contributions. That this harmed the debtors, the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, and it harmed them in an amount to be proved at trial. So remember that Joe Bankman in part 2 of the lawsuit series, that he did his homework in trying to set up trusts and trying to hide money for bankruptcy protection. So it's guaranteed they're going to protect their stolen assets as much as possible. The exact number is unknown at the moment, probably an ongoing investigation by the FTX bankruptcy lawyers. Now, the lawsuit says that at all times, at all relevant times, the FTX crypto exchange was absolutely insolvent. A massive fail for Scam Sam. That at the commencement of the Chapter 11 case, the bankruptcy case, the crypto exchange's software had been tampered with to the extent to allow the $65 billion credit line, saying that Alameda Limited had zero ability to repay any of this debt, and that all the FTX insiders, including Joe Bankman and Barbara Fried, had transferred the money using loans, gifting, and questionable investments. So that's pretty much the whole lawsuit. They have a section just on the Bahamas property, a 30,000 square foot luxury property. Sounds pretty nice. A $16 million luxury residence in the Bahamas. They go through that, and then there's another section where they go through all the charges. All right, guys, well, I'll leave it here for now. Absolutely crazy stuff from Scam Sam's mother. Just as bad of a failure as the father. Both absolutely ruined, or helped to ruin, their own son. Child sacrifice. Just absolutely nuts. All right, guys, well, thank you so much for spending time with me. Always an absolute pleasure. And I gotta say, my favorite part about YouTube is the thoughtful comments. Super insightful stuff. All right, guys, well, with that, thank you so much. Please don't forget to smash the like, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.